please take a moment to do so. I want to show you something on, ironically, the New York Times website. Not a website that I frequent very often anymore for reasons that are extremely obvious. However, I want to show you something on the New York Times website today. So if you go to the New York Times website and you do a topic search, meaning you put a keyword into their search engine function and it populates how many articles have been written about that topic. If you put in the phrase George Floyd into the New York Times website, you will find that the New York Times has published 5,897 articles about George Floyd. That's a lot. If you put the phrase Trayvon Martin into the search engine on the New York Times, you will find that the New York Times has written 1,190 articles about Trayvon Martin. Similarly, if you put Kilmar Abrego Garcia, that's the so-called Maryland dad, the MS-13 gang member who was deported to El Salvador, that guy, the terrible person who the left is trying to lionize in the name of anti-deportation. The New York Times has written 56 separate articles about Kilmar Abrego Garcia. If you put in the name Daniel Penny, you remember Daniel Penny, the hero on the New York City subway who protected everyone on that train from a violent psychopath who was threatening to murder everyone. Yeah, Daniel Penny, who was then charged with murder. Thank goodness he was found not guilty. If you type his name into the New York Times website, how many articles do you think the New York Times wrote about Daniel Penny? Well, the answer to that is 100, and I can tell you, they're not sympathetic articles to Daniel Penny. So now, you put in the New York Times website the name Irina Zarutska. Irina Zarutska. This is the woman who was riding home from work it wasn't quite 10 o'clock in the evening in Charlotte, North Carolina. She was on the bus. She works at a pizza parlor. She's actually an immigrant from Ukraine. She escaped, a refugee. She escaped the Ukrainian war a couple years ago with her family, came to America to build a new life, to pursue the American dream. She was working hard and a not so glamorous job working at a pizza parlor. She's riding the bus home at 9:45, 10 o'clock at night, and she's brutally stabbed. She's stabbed to death by a black man, a schizophrenic black man who takes a knife out and stabs her to death. Now, the video of this awful, heinous crime was committed on August 22nd, the evening of August 22nd, and it's taken until today. What is today? The 9th of September, the 8th of September? A day ago. Less than 24 hours ago, the video of this brutal attack was released. We all got a chance to watch this. It's really horrific. And yet the New York Times, if you put the name of this woman who was murdered in the search engine on the New York Times, try it. I mean, you can look right here. Irina Zarutska. 0 results from the New York Times. Now, this story has been trending online, on X, on YouTube, on Google for more than a day. And the New York Times has nothing to say about it. Well, you know, and I know that the New York Times is propaganda. If they speak, it's because the Democratic Party apparatus wants them to speak. If they're silent, it's because the Democratic Party apparatus wants the New York Times to act as a gatekeeper to prevent you from knowing something that's critically important. In fact, in this specific scenario, they can't allow you to know the truth about what happened to Irina Zarutska and why what happened. The truth is, there is systemic racism in our criminal justice system. And I know that's a phrase that you'll hear from Democrats. But when Democrats claim there's systemic racism, they claim that black people are targeted because they're black. Black people are incarcerated more often because they're black. Black people are arrested more because they're black. Police officers are more likely to brutalize and shoot unarmed black men than unarmed white men. They claim white people are the problem. It's a white supremacist system, police and the prison system. That's what the left claims. But the truth is, there is systemic racism in our criminal justice system today. But that racism is against white people. And this story, this heinous murder of this innocent white woman at the hands of a schizophrenic black man who had been arrested 14 times and let go, this is evidence of that reality. And that reality is brought to you by the Democratic Party. That is what we're going to talk about today. Today's episode is sponsored by All Family Pharmacy. Are you tired of doctors telling you what to do? You can't get prescriptions for affordable off-patent medications, or your insurance won't cover what actually works for you. Well, if this is you, you're not alone. Millions of other Americans are likewise frustrated with our broken, it's not just broken, it's corrupt healthcare system. All Family Pharmacy is your alternative. They're a patient-first independent pharmacy They connect you with licensed US doctors who approve your prescriptions online fast and legally. So there's no gatekeeping, there's no insurance middleman, there's no red tape. They offer you directly affordable, high-demand medications that are often hard to access, usually for political reasons. Ivermectin, for example, at All Family Pharmacy, you can get ivermectin starting at just $2. Mebendazole, hydroxychloroquine, antibiotics, NAD, you name it, they have it. 200 different medication options. It's very easy. You just order online. It takes, a minute or two. A licensed doctor then reviews and approves your prescription. The medication ships straight to your door, so there's no clinic visits, which means no hassle. Everything is secure, HIPAA compliant, and pharmacist reviewed. You choose the medication, not an insurance company or an indoctrinated, corrupt physician. Real healthcare freedom means you decide what's right for your body. It's time to put your medical freedom back in your hands. Visit them, allfamilypharmacy.com/Liz. Because you are part of this movement, you can use my code Liz10 at checkout for an exclusive discount. It's your health. Should be your choice. No more waiting. That's allfamilypharmacy.com/Liz, code Liz10. Even if you don't need medication at this moment, check out their website, familiarize yourself so that it's in the back of your mind as a resource when you or a member of your family might need it. Allfamilypharmacy.com/Liz, code Liz10. All right, Irina Zarutska. Let's talk about Irina Zarutska. She came here from Ukraine a couple years ago to escape the Russia invading Ukraine. She didn't want to die in the war, so she's a war refugee here to the United States. She wanted to pursue the American dream. She wanted to be successful. She wanted to have a wonderful life, and she was willing to work hard to do that. She worked an unglamorous job, you could say. She worked at a pizza parlor. That's how she was making her living as she sought to build up her savings to pursue her dreams. And listen, the dignity of work is so demonized in our country these days. It's actually refreshing to see a professional woman who came to the United States who was willing to do hard work in order to try to earn a living, to set herself up for success. Until, of course, August 22nd. On August 22nd, she left work. She boarded the bus in Charlotte, North Carolina at about 9:45. She rode the bus. She was just sitting, minding her own business, dressed perfectly modestly with a hat on, her pizza parlor uniform. It was a polo shirt, black pants. She had her head bent down. She was looking at her phone, as we all do when we're traveling on any kind of mass transit. She's riding in peace for about 4 minutes until a monster rears up behind her. This is the footage that was released of the murder of Irina Zarutska. Take a look. You can see her sitting down, getting on her phone. She's a beautiful young woman. You see the monster leaning over her. Now the frames stop before she's stabbed to death. She was stabbed 3 different times, including once in the neck. Law enforcement said they weren't going to release the full footage that shows the murder to the completion out of respect for the family. And I don't know how I feel about that. Part of me understands, out of respect for the privacy of the family, out of respect for Irina and for Irina's family's privacy. I understand you don't want that plastered all over the internet. At the same time, it reeks to me of a political cover-up. We saw George Floyd's video, the entirety of George Floyd's video, and that's one of the reasons that the Black Lives Matter riots became as prevalent as they were, because people were watching that footage. And while they were watching that footage, the narrative of the mainstream media, of the left, of the trained Marxists who founded the Black Lives Matter movement was playing in people's minds. So people were watching this with a planted narrative telling them what they were seeing, even if it wasn't true, even if the narrative that they were being told wasn't true, they believed it because they were watching the entire video. So I understand, in a sense, that the family might not want this to go public. I don't know, actually, if the family requested that or if that's just the excuse that law enforcement is telling us for why they're not releasing the full footage. At the same time, because this is not an arbitrary murder, this was not something that just happened. Horrible things happen. Some people are bad. Some people fall victim to crime. No. What happened was the result of a deliberate political decision. Democrats, not just in Charlotte, North Carolina, not just in the state of North Carolina, Democrats across the country are responsible for the brutal murder of Irina Zarutska. And I'm going to show you exactly why. By the way, just moments ago, President Trump, he's outside the Museum of the Bible right now. Just moments ago, President Trump commented on the murderer of Irina Zarutska, he said, quote, "We're all people of religion, but there are evil people, and we want to confront that." Looks like we have the video of this. Let's go ahead and play that.
I just give my love and hope to the family of the young woman who was stabbed this morning or last night in Charlotte by a madman, a lunatic. Just got up and started. It's right on the tape. Not really watchable because it's so horrible, but just viciously stabbed. She's just sitting there. So they're evil people. We have to be able to handle that. If we don't handle that, we don't have a country. I just give my love and hope.
If we don't handle that, he said, we don't have a country. There are evil people. He understands. You and I talk about this almost on a weekly basis. This is not our political battle in the United States. Is not left versus right. It's not Republicans bickering with Democrats. This is a battle, a spiritual battle of good versus evil. President Trump understands that. But do you know who doesn't understand that? The mainstream media hacks and the online personalities who've had Ukraine flags in their bio for the past 3 years. Remember, the victim of this crime was Ukrainian. She was a Ukrainian war refugee. If you claim to care about the Ukrainian people, you know, Putin's so awful invading Ukraine, stand with Ukraine. Why aren't you standing with Irina Zarutska? Well, I'll tell you the answer to why they aren't standing with Irina. Let's talk first about the perpetrator of this crime, who has now been charged with homicide. His name is DeCarlos Brown. We can show a picture of him on the screen, and he has an extensive criminal history. He had no prior contact with Irina Zarutska. This was not a crime that was committed against someone he knew. This was a random act of violence. This is all his mugshot after mugshot after mugshot. He was arrested 14 different times in his life, and yet he was walking free. Why is that? Why was he walking free? Well, I'll tell you, in the state of North Carolina, in June of 2020, Governor Roy Cooper signed an executive order. The executive order number 145, if you're interested in looking it up, I highly recommend that you do. Executive order 145, signed in June 2020 by Governor Roy Cooper, establishes a racial equity in criminal justice task force. Racial equity in criminal justice task force. So let's break that down, what that means. Racial equity. Well, equity is not equality. Equality means you are treated equally. You are held to the same standard. Equity means forced equal outcomes, not equal opportunity, equal outcomes. So racial equity means a forced equal outcome based on race. So a forced equal outcome based on race in criminal justice means that this task force was given the task of figuring out how to reduce the percentage of Black people who are incarcerated and or increase the percentage of white people. That's not equality. That's not justice. In fact, that's racial discrimination, or as the left likes to call it, that's systemic racism. But we'll get to that in a moment. The practical implications of this racial equity in criminal justice task force that was established by North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper in June of 2020, in the year following the establishment of this task force, murders in Charlotte, North Carolina skyrocketed by 40% in the space of 1 year. 40% increase in homicides. That's not a coincidence. Charlotte, North Carolina is more dangerous than the capital of Ukraine. This is a post on X from Christina Pushaw. She said the homicide rate in Charlotte, North Carolina is 12 per 100,000. The homicide rate in Kiev, Ukraine is about 8.5 per 100,000, and that counts all Kiev residents killed in Russian airstrikes over the last year. Before the war, it was approximately 4 per 100,000. Progressives have turned our cities into war zones. So let me make this very clear. This Ukrainian refugee who escaped the war in Ukraine because she considered it to be a threat to her life moved to a city in the United States where the murder rate is higher than the capital of the war-torn country of Ukraine. You would think this would be pretty big news. In fact, Piers Morgan posted on X asking why this wasn't getting more coverage. He said, why is the disgusting, senseless, unprovoked murder of 23-year-old Ukrainian refugee Irina Zarutska by a man named Carlos Brown Jr. on a train in Charlotte, North Carolina, not getting more media attention? Well, Piers, let me tell you. The answer is because the killer is a black man who was let out of prison 14 times thanks to the Democrats' racial equity and criminal justice ideology. And the victim, of course, was a white woman. This didn't have to happen. Governor J.B. Pritzker recently said, you expect crime in big cities. Big crime happens in big cities. He was kind of shrugging it off. This is a fact of life. This is something that happens. This is an inevitability. There's not something we can do to fix it, he was insinuating. This was in response to President Trump saying that he's going to send in the National Guard into Chicago because Chicago was more dangerous than Afghanistan and Iraq during the wars.
You're going to hear people, especially this past weekend, 54 shot, 7 dead.
Yeah.
They're going to say the city's not safe. Would you ask your friends to ride the L after midnight or after, 9 o'clock at night even to come down to the city from O'Hare?
Look, big cities have crime. There's no doubt about it. But let's just pay attention to what.
Big cities have crime. There's no doubt about it. Big cities have crime. Just there, just happens. Nothing I can do about it. It's not like I'm the governor of the state. J.B. Pritzker, governor of Illinois. Listen very closely to what I'm saying. Irina Zarutska was not a victim of an inevitable crime. She was a blood sacrifice on the altar of the left's evil racialism. Racial Equity and Criminal Justice Task Force is another way of camouflaging critical race theory in our government. Critical race theory is a neo-Marxist theory that posits that all white people are inherently racist because of the color of their skin, and all black people are inherently oppressed because of the color of their skin. Critical race theory in our government is racism in our government. Racial Equity in Criminal Justice Task Force is an effort to impose a neo-Marxist ideology onto our criminal justice system, which makes it unjust. And here's the thing. There may be evil politicians in states and localities that want to discriminate against white people. They want to let black people off the hook, criminals. Black people who have committed crimes off the hook because they're black, and they don't want their statistics to look like there's a disproportionate percentage of black people in prison compared to the percentage of white people. Black people make up 13% of the American population, and yet are responsible for 50% of homicides. That is not a systemically racist criminal justice system targeting black people because they're black. That is a disproportionate number of black people committing homicides. And you can ask why that is, and we should ask why that is, because it's not something that's inherent to being black. You are not motivated or more likely or genetically predisposed to commit a crime because of the color of your skin. There's something socially that's happening in our country that's forming people who happen to have black skin to be more likely to commit crimes. What is that? It's funny how these media outlets, whether it's the Associated Press or the New York Times or any of these other leftist outlets, have zero curiosity about what social factors might be contributing to this epidemic of crime. All they're interested in is making sure it doesn't look like a higher percentage of black people are incarcerated. And the result of that is black people who have committed heinous crimes are being let out of prison. They're not being prosecuted after they commit crimes, after they're accused of committing crimes. They're not facing prosecution, or the charges that they're facing are downgraded from felonies to misdemeanors. They're let out of prison early in order to make statistics look better. Law enforcement statistics look better. State statistics look better. We don't have to accept this in the United States, and we shouldn't. We know that critical race theory is evil. That's why we collectively, not just people on the right, all across the aisle, parents on the left and the right, even if you're not a parent, you have an interest in what's being taught to young people in public schools, because young people are at some point going to be voting on policies in government that impact you, people across the country joined forces and said, get critical race theory out of our schools. We're not going to teach young white people that they're racist because they have white skin. We're not going to teach young black people they're black because of color of their skin. Get it out of our schools. And we were enormously successful in doing so. So get the gang back together. Racial equity and criminal justice task forces need to be eliminated, and we can do it pretty easily. States that implement racial equity in criminal justice task forces or anything similar, it doesn't have to be the exact same name, should not receive federal funds, period. Think about what President Trump did to the state of Maine after Maine's radical leftist governor, Janet Mills, refused to comply with President Trump's executive order that said no biological boys allowed to play in girls' sports. Janet Mills allowed a biological boy to play in girls' sports in the public school system in Maine. And what did Trump do? He said, you either comply with the law or your state is not going to receive federal funding. Your people in your state are going to suffer, and it's going to be your fault. And what happened? Well, Janet Mills complied with the federal government's directive, making sure to protect girls' sports. President Trump has this power to address this situation as well. It's not just North Carolina that has a racial equity and criminal justice task force. 23 separate states in our country and the District of Columbia all have racial equity and criminal justice initiatives in their state. There is systemic racism in our criminal justice system. That systemic racism is aimed at white people. There is no doubt that Trump, this very day, there was a clip from him yesterday where, as of last night, he had not yet seen the video of Irina Zarutska. Thank goodness he has seen it today. Take action, Mr. President. I highly recommend it. You have the power. You have the authority. You have the mandate. Your base wants you to hold Democrats accountable. This is the fault of Democrats. They're the ones. Think about the Black Lives Matter movement. There's a note on my Wikipedia page right now. I check my Wikipedia page like twice a year. There's a note on my Wikipedia page right now that says that I accused the founders of the Black Lives Matter movement of being quote unquote trained Marxists. Wikipedia notes this as if I made a false accusation. There is a literal video of one of the women who founded the Black Lives Matter movement, Alicia Garza and Patrice Coolers. There is a video of her saying, "We are trained Marxists." The Black Lives Matter movement was built not just on Marxism, but harnessing critical race theory, a neo-Marxist ideology, and using it to churn up public upheaval after the death of George Floyd. President Trump watched this happen. President Trump watched as even Democrats were red-pilled by this. I think there's two instances in a person's life that red pills them more than anything else. And that's watching their city burn at the hands of leftist agitators and domestic terrorists and having a child. Mr. President, you have an opportunity here to show the American people that you're listening to them. We don't want critical race theory in our justice system. It's evil. It's discrimination against white people. And this, by the way, what happened to Irina Zarutska is not an isolated incident. In fact, there's a post. Spence, do we have this post of that public school teacher? There's a public school teacher. He posted on X and it went absolutely viral. And he said every public school teacher knows exactly what kind of person this murderer was. Because this is something, there it is. What's the guy's name? Frank McCormick? Frank McCormick posted and said every public school teacher, and I'm paraphrasing here, knows what kind of student this is, because this is not just a problem in our criminal justice system. This type of racialism, this type of double standard, this type of administration, whether it's a school administration or a government administration or law enforcement, allowing Black people to commit crimes and break the rules without any accountability because they're Black, and they don't want statistics to show that more Black people are committing crimes than white people. This starts as early as elementary school. Frank McCormick, and I highly recommend that you go and you read this entire post. We'll post the link to this X post in the comment section on the live stream and on my social media. I think I already retweeted it on X earlier. And he talks about how the public school system allows this type of young man to get away with anything, with disruptive behavior, with disrespectful behavior, with defiant behavior, with criminal behavior. And in fact, not only is he not held accountable, he's rewarded. He's graduated from the school system thinking that he can do whatever he wants. He can commit crimes and wrongdoings against anybody without any repercussions. If we wanted to solve the problem of what happened and what didn't have to happen to Irina Zarutska, we would actually ask why. What social factors contributed to this? What social factors contribute at large to the statistic? If you want to talk about racial disparity, set aside incarceration for a second. Set aside the fact that Black people are 13% of our population. I think Black men are like 6%, and yet they're responsible for 50% of murder convictions in our country. We're often told there's racial disparity in incarceration. You want to talk about racial disparity? If you are a white person in our country, you are 31 times more likely to be victimized by a Black person than a Black person is to be victimized by a white person. Do you want to talk about racial disparity? And then the result of that is when white people are victimized by Black people, there's racial equity to make sure that the Black people are let off the hook. And it results in this: innocent white women like Irina getting murdered. I would challenge you. Imagine for a moment that the races were reversed in this situation. Do you think the New York Times would have zero stories about Irina Zarutska if she were Black? And if DeCarlos was a schizophrenic white man? Do you think there'd be zero media hits on this? Zero articles, zero commentary, zero outrage from Democrat politicians? Do you think that would be the case? Well, maybe if the schizophrenic white man was identifying as trans, there'd be zero coverage of that. But putting that aside for a second, if the races were reversed, there would be race riots in the United States of America right now. And instead, we have the mayor of Charlotte saying, actually, we can't incarcerate away mental illness. Well, no, you can't. And that's not the role of the criminal justice system. The criminal justice system, I am sad to say, is not charged with helping criminals rehabilitate. Oh, I know that's very unpopular to say. What do you mean, Liz? You don't believe in the rehabilitation of criminals? No, that's fine. If we want to try to offer resources to the incarcerated to help them rehabilitate. But that's not the primary purpose of incarceration. That's not the primary purpose of the criminal justice system. The primary purpose is to hold accountable criminals who have violated the rights of other people, who are a danger to other people, to themselves, and to society at large. So if you, as the mayor of Charlotte, are condoning the fact that he was let out of prison 14 times, he was let out of prison 14 times. Then it's your fault. It's your fault. You let DeCarlos Brown out. Your ideology permitted this crime, enabled this crime. It doesn't have to be this way. President Trump could take action today to get rid of these types of policies, because I think this is another one of those red pill moments. The American people, it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on, are seeing the writing on the wall. Our cities are dangerous. There's crime being committed at a higher rate than in a war-torn country like Ukraine. And it's a result of the Democrats' policy. The reason the mainstream media won't touch this is because they're the mouthpieces. The mainstream media is the mouthpieces of the Democratic Party. They're the propagandists. And the Democratic Party can't have you know that they let DeCarlos Brown out of prison 14 times because he's Black. Did you guys see the video of the Phillies game? The psycho liberal woman screaming in the face of the dad after his son caught the baseball and the psycho liberal woman wanted it? Well, I have a take on this that I haven't seen a lot of people talking about. I get that the liberal woman is psycho. There is no doubt about that. There's a feminist if you ever wanted a stereotype of one. But how about the dad? How about his behavior? We're going to get to that in just a second. But first, I want to shout out one of our sponsors for today's show, Cozy Earth. Listen, I love Cozy Earth. My house is absolutely papered with Cozy Earth. I have their pajamas. I have their blankets. I have their sheets. I have their towels. They are so soft. The pajamas, so breathable, so cute. You will start planning your entire evenings around them. How quickly can I get into my pajamas? Their bamboo stretch knit pajama set is designed to sleep cooler than cotton. It really does. It's lovely. With elegant contrast piping and a relaxed fit that makes it perfect for winding down at the end of the day. The set includes a button up top with a pocket and pants with an elastic waistband, and it's made from viscose from bamboo for an ultra comfortable drape and feel. It's that kind of material that you can just feel against your skin. It's lovely. Cozy Earth also offers the Bubble Cuddle Blanket, a textured faux fur throw that blends plush softness with an elevated style. I have it on my couch right now. And Cozy Earth's blanket comes with a 100-night sleep trial and a 10-year warranty. They are covered. Their entire apparel line is covered by a lifetime guarantee. Cozy Earth transforms your 5 to 9, the time that matters the most, into the most comfortable part of your day. Go to cozyearth.com. Use code Liz at checkout for up to 40% off your new favorite pajama set. I have it in the lavender color, the purple color, and their blanket. That's cozyearth.com, code Liz. And if you get a post-purchase survey, make sure to let them know you heard about Cozy Earth right here from me. Elevate your downtime with Cozy Earth, cozyearth.com. Use code Liz. Okay, you saw the video. We all saw the video. It was the video seen around the world at the Phillies baseball game. A young boy catches a baseball, and this psychotic leftist feminist woman, and I don't care if she's posted about her politics or not. Maybe she has. You can tell by looking at her. Sometimes you actually can judge a book by the cover. She's a feminist, if I've ever seen a feminist. She goes ballistic at the dad. This is the video. Let's take a look. Oh boy. Oh, that poor boy's face. Did you see the way he looked at his dad? And by the way, I would just like to preface what I'm going to say by showing you this video. She's known as now as Phillies Karen. That's what she's being called online. This was not an isolated incident. This was not a mistake, a bad moment caught on camera. Some people are trying to defend her. No. She goes back to her seat and she gets in another man's face. And then she flips off the entire crowd at the baseball game. Take a look at this.
Yeah, you tell it. Woo!
You seeing her? Oh, she deliberately goes over to confront. Now, why is that? Maybe because no one stopped her the first time. So she thinks, I can get away with this behavior. And get away with this behavior because she's been getting away with it her entire life. Listen to the guy holding the camera. The booing and the jeering. Okay, so fast forward to the next day, and obviously both this psycho feminist, she's famous online. She's subject to a huge pile-on. Is that right? Is that wrong? We'll get to that question in a moment. This boy was given, a goodie bag and a bat by the Phillies. There were offers from some rich and famous celebrities to fly him to the World Series. He's got a lot of goodies as a result of this experience, and yet he lost something that cannot be replaced by material goods, and I'm going to show you exactly what I mean. In the aftermath, the father and his daughter and the son did a media interview, and watch this interview. Look at the young boy's face.
I wasn't very happy that we had to give it to her, but we can't win. She was gonna get it anyways.
She was gonna get it anyway.
She wasn't gonna take it, but I decided to give her the ball. I apologize to you, but it was the right thing. We just wanted her to go away.
Why do you apologizing if it was the right thing?
And it worked out. You got a bat.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Oh,
Dad, do you have any regrets giving the ball back?
Yeah, like I said, it's, that was what we were there for. We were there to get a home run ball. So I thought I had accomplished this great thing, and putting in his glove meant a lot. And she was just so adamant and loud and yelling and persistent, and I just didn't want to deal with it anymore. There was hundreds of people, just staring. And like I said, she was very, very, very close. And I'm dad of the family, so I didn't want to do something I'd regret. And that was the choice I made, is to just hand the ball back and tell her, go away.
he just didn't want to deal with it. She was loud. She was a bully. Listen, society's dream man right there. Everybody's dream man. Let me just back away if there's someone who's a little verbally aggressive in my face. Did you see the face of his son as his son was looking up at his father? This little boy is devastated by his father, not by the psycho woman, by the feminist, by her verbal assault. He's devastated by his dad. My heart aches watching that video. Imagine this little boy being humiliated by your father like that on national television. Obviously, the screaming liberal woman at the baseball game was psycho. She's obviously a feminist. She's obviously a leftist. But she didn't lose her temper or make a mistake. Her worst moment captured on video. No. That vicious, entitled, deranged verbal attack is a core part of her feminist leftist ideology. This is who she is. But so is the weak father. Spineless cowards like that man are why these psycho-feminists exist in the first place. He probably apathetically claps at DEI training too. Doesn't say a word when biological boys play against his daughter in sports. Definitely got the vax. All it would take is one generation of virtuous men saying no to feminism, protecting their daughters from it, rejecting it in public discourse, removing it from the workplace and from schools, defending the beauty of true masculinity, speaking the truth about femininity, and feminism would go extinct. But for every limp, doughy dude who just wanted the problem to go away, and so let a venomous, man-hating leftist woman trot all over him and his children, another generation of horrible, screeching feminists are spawned. It is a man's duty to protect his wife, to protect his children, his family, his community, society at large. That includes protecting daughters specifically and society from the scourge of feminism. He failed big time. It's very weird to me to see people defending him as nice when males like this are part of the reason that psycho-feminists exist in the first place. As for the public shaming aspect, this woman has been doxxed. At least, when I say doxxed, her name has been revealed. Someone knew who she was and posted her name online. I don't know if that counts as doxing. I consider doxing to be, posting your telephone number or your street address, a photo of your house, maybe your children's names. That's harmful doxing. I don't know if it's harmful to have the name of this woman revealed. It seems to me that that's not that big of a deal. But there are certain people who are against the public shaming. There are certain people who actually said, well, listen, the woman was wrong, but should we be engaging in this type of vicious pileup against this woman? Well, let me make one thing clear. I don't condone any threats to her physical safety. I don't condone doxing if it includes her telephone number or her home. I don't want her to suffer any physical harm. But when it comes to public shaming, I think perhaps as a society, we would be better if there were some stigma and societal consequences to immoral behavior, especially publicly immoral behavior. Maybe somebody watching this whole baseball fiasco is like, oh, I don't think I'm going to do that because I don't want my name plastered all over the internet. I don't want to be subject to mean tweets. Maybe a little stigma and public humiliation is good for feminists because they've gotten their entire life, they've gotten by behaving badly and suffering no repercussions. None whatsoever. So no, I don't condone threats. I don't want her physical address or her telephone number being doxxed to the public because there are some crazy people out there and I don't want anything to happen to her safety. But maybe we as a society should consider the fact that there's a reason that public shaming used to work. There's a reason that we feel uncomfortable being subject to public shaming. It's a powerful tool when it's harnessed correctly. And maybe there are certain immoral behaviors that actually would cease if we engaged in it a little bit more. Speaking of this woman's name, I think we found her. If you want to see an up-close picture of her, we have this photo of Phillies Karen. It turns out it's someone that someone who serves in the United States Senate. It's Elizabeth Warren. It's Elizabeth Warren. Whoever made that meme. AI is so good. So good. Can't even tell the difference. It, of course, was not Elizabeth Warren. I forget the woman's actual name. I don't actually don't care what her name is in this case. I just think that, it's okay if she's being subject to opinions about how poor her behavior was online, but it does seem like something Elizabeth Warren might be okay with, and they do have the same haircut. So, as I said, sometimes you actually can judge a book by the cover. Sometimes it's the people that you most expect. It's not actually a surprise. What do you guys think? Was the dad at fault here? Was he weak? Is he part of the problem? Is he actually the reason that psychofeminists exist? Or is he just trying to have a nice time with his family at the baseball game and didn't want conflict? In the live chat right now, it's hilarious. Somewhat Wild Man of the North says feminism takes your balls before they will leave. Yes, so this is not only bad in an isolated way, it is actually an illustration of feminism as a whole. Cujo says he beat out in front of his kid. Yeah, he did. Deplorable Dinosaur says dad's a coward. I think he is. And I'm sorry to say that. In a sense, I don't want him to be a coward, but what are his children going to think? Do you think they're going to count on him defending them in the course of their lives, or are they always going to remember this? This is a formative experience. This young girl now knows that she can't count on her dad to defend her. This young boy, the example of manhood that's been set for him by his dad is, don't be a man. Let the bully run over you and then subject your child to public humiliation on national television. It's not good. It's not good. It's not what we want for our society. You know what we do want for our society, though? Healthcare that's actually affordable. We don't want to be subject to insurance companies who give us plans because we're required to have health insurance and then charge us these enormous premiums with deductibles that are unreachable and then deny us care when we actually need it. What if I told you that you could get healthcare for under $100, that you could dispense with the insurance system? Now, you've heard me talk a lot about crowd health. My family and I quit our health insurance plan. I think it was last November, so it's been almost a year now, because of what I just said. We didn't want to be part of this corrupt system. It's incredibly expensive. And for what? Claim denials are so common. They're like 10 times more common now than they were before Obamacare. I want to tell you about something new that Crowd Health has just introduced. I think you'll be very interested in this. You can finally rid yourself of the bureaucracy of the healthcare system and take agency over your own health without it breaking the bank. Crowd Health just introduced what they're calling the Black Swan membership. It's the healthcare alternative for people who want autonomy over their care, their costs, and their lifestyle. They just need a little help with the Black Swan events that do happen once in a while in our lives. For just $95 a month, you can get access to a team of health bill negotiators, low-cost prescription and lab testing tools, and a database of low-cost, high-quality doctors vetted for you by Crowd Health. You stay in control without insurance and their networks dictating your care. And what if something major does happen? What if you have a big bill, a big major health event? Well, in that case, you pay the first $15,000, and then the crowd, that's me and my husband, my family, and others like us, we step in to help fund the rest. It actually feels like the options that we used to have before Obamacare messed everything up. You remember the catastrophic options? You're responsible for your healthcare costs unless something that would break your bank happens, then you're covered. That's what this feels like. You can use my code Liz, and it's only $80 for the first 3 months. Visit joincrowdhealth.com. Joincrowdhealth.com. Use promo code Liz. The mandatory disclaimer is Crowd Health is not insurance. I personally think the best way to describe Crowd Health is it's assurance. Assurance. Visit joincrowdhealth.com and use promo code Liz. That's joincrowdhealth.com, promo code Liz. All right, let's head back to the live chat here. Okay, a contrarian. Kathleen says he's a dad who cares enough to take his kids to a baseball game. Yeah, that's true. That's true. It's extremely kind of you, Kathleen. That's looking for redeeming qualities. We need more people like you in our country. You are obviously kinder than I am. However, I think both can be true. He can love his kids and he can be cowardly about fighting back about the feminist ideology. Think about the chances that his daughter has now of being a feminist like that woman. No, the daughter might have been turned off by that behavior, but she also knows in the back of her mind that society is going to let her get away with that kind of temper tantrum. Kathleen says maybe he chose wrong in the moment, but surely he regrets it and that doesn't make him a bad father. Kathleen, are you married to this man? Are you married to him? Because this is a strong defense. If he chose wrong in the moment, then he would have said so on that video of in the media interview the next day. Nemesis Juggernaut says it makes him a weak father, showing his boy how to bow down. I think so. It's like I said, it's both isolated to the incident itself, but also society at large. That we have a problem, and we're going to do a whole episode on this pretty soon, because we have a problem in our society where young men are red pilling at record rates. If you look at the percentage of young men, Gen Z and millennial young men, but specifically Gen Z, so very young men who are voting Republican, who are embracing, Catholicism, who are looking for a more traditional, ordered society and life, we haven't seen anything like this among young men, at least in my lifetime. This is the first time. Young men are becoming Republican and right-wing in record numbers. Yet, there's an incredible contrast because young women, the opposite is happening. Young women are increasingly becoming not just liberal or leaning left, but committed, hardcore, revolutionary leftists, like Marxists. And the question is why? What are the factors in our society right now that are causing young men to become right-wing and causing young women to be hardened leftists? And there are a lot of answers to that. And as I said, we have a future episode coming up exploring this, because this is not something we can just observe. This is not something we can't just wait for this to come to a head where all these young men suddenly realize that they don't have anyone to marry besides these horrible feminists. We can't just observe this. It's obvious why young men are red pilling, because there's been this attack on masculinity. They've been subject to no due process under the law. They've been told they're toxic just for having testosterone. But what has captured young women? What has captured young women? And the answer to that question, I'm going to give you in a future episode, but I'm going to tell you today that regardless of what has captured young women, the reason that young women are capturable is because something has failed to protect them from being captured. And the something that has failed them from being captured is men. And that's very evident in this baseball video. This is not just an isolated incident of, who's right and who's wrong in this particular scuffle. This is an illustration of what's happening in our society, where these radical, psycho feminist women are ruining society. And I don't want to sit here and sound like Andrew Tate or Pearl Davis and demonize women, because this is not something inherent to being a woman. It's not something that women are somehow less moral or less human even than men. That's not the problem. There's been some institutional, societal effort that has been levied against young women to capture them and turn them into feminists. And it's been very successful. The problem is, when that assault on women started, there was not the bulwark of defense from men to protect women from ideological capture. So when I see this video of this Phillies dad, of course I think that the woman is psycho. Of course she's the baddie in this scenario. Obviously, she was the aggressor. She had absolutely no argument, zero cards, as President Trump might say. Nothing, no leg to stand on for her behavior, no justification. It's humiliating that someone would even act like that. But the reason she's acting like that is because society at large has given her the permission to act like that by not only forming her into who she is ideologically, but not defending her from being captured in the first place and then not holding her accountable for that behavior. This is not the first time she's behaved like that. This is the behavior of a woman who has repeatedly behaved like that throughout the course of her life and who has been rewarded for it. And that's why I look at this video and I see this father and I think, not only is he lame, you look at this and you think, oh, what a loser. This is so sad that this young man, his son, was treated like this. It's not strong leadership. It's not virtuous courage. It's not standing firm in your principles. It's the opposite of all of that. But it's not just isolated to, oh, this one man in this one particular circumstance acted in a way that I don't think any woman finds attractive. This is a societal issue with men. And it's time that we address that. And so we're going to soon in a future episode, because the solution to teaching young women not to be feminists is not to have strong female role models for them to emulate. It's for men to reject feminism. All right, I want to take a moment here and thank you all for watching and listening to this show day in and day out. I appreciate you guys so much. It's because of you that we are able to keep producing content like this. And, you know, it's not just entertaining. It's not just fun to sit here and chit chat with you about the things that matter every day. We are making a difference in the policy actions of our government. We are engaging in our own self-governance by participating in this show. Blaze TV exists because people like you refuse to settle for, watered down coverage of the mainstream media, endless spin, clickbait headlines that mislead them instead of inform them, and politicians that abuse us. Now, this has never been about one voice or one company. It is about our movement. People who refuse to sit on the sidelines and are actually willing to take a stand. That's you guys. That's why Blaze TV matters. By subscribing, you are standing shoulder to shoulder with me, with a community that believes America is worth fighting for, that believes in objective truth, in right and wrong. Blaze Media only exists because people like you step up, join us, and help drive our mission forward. When you subscribe, you're not just supporting a show, you're making your voice count, ensuring that truth has a platform today and for the next generation. Join Blaze TV today at blazetv.com/Liz and get $20 off right now. For as low as $8 a month on the annual plan, you can be a part of shaping our future. That's blazetv.com/Liz. blazetv.com/Liz. All right. Tell the president, Mr. President, you're such a strong leader. You're so unafraid to use the mandate that was given to you by us, the American people, the voters. We voted for you because we want justice. There's incredible injustice in 23 states in the District of Columbia, across the country. 23 states and DC have racial equity in criminal justice task forces or similar initiatives, the purpose of which is to reduce the number of Black people who are incarcerated, not by reducing the number of crimes committed, but by simply letting Black people who commit crimes off the hook because of the color of their skin. That's dangerous. There is systemic racism in our criminal justice system at this very moment. It's systemic racism against white people. And we will not stand for it anymore. In the name of Irina Zarutska, Mr. President, withhold federal funding from each and every state and the District of Columbia if they continue to engage in racialism, racism, critical race theory in our criminal justice system. It's not justice, it's injustice, and you have the power to stop that. President Trump listens to you, to his base. He's watched the video. He knows the difference between good and evil. He called out the evil man who perpetrated this attack, and now it's time to call out the Democrats who enabled it. Share this episode. Send it to your family group chat, post it on your social media, tag me, make your voice heard. Thank you for watching today. Thank you for listening. I'm Liz Wheeler. This is The Liz Wheeler Show.